Alright, I know this sweater blends in with the background, that's why I've put on my trusty overalls to help break it up for you all. So now no one can make the claim that I'm an inconsiderate YouTuber. Not that anyone has, but I'm just future-proofing myself. Okay, hello, hi, hey. Let's talk about the moving out of California industrial complex.
Folks, we are leaving California.
Eventually, I'm gonna move out of California.
It is official, I am
moving out of California.
California sucks.
I'm out of here.
And in this video, I'm gonna explain why I'm leaving.
Because California criminalizes being a handy person.
And how you could do the same thing if you want a better life and of course, more money in your pocket.
This is America. This is the American dream and everyone deserves it.
This place is gonna sink. Watch, as soon as I leave.
So stay tuned.
I am really excited to talk about this topic because it's been burning in my little tiny Californian heart for quite some time now. That being said, the title is not clickbait. I too will be departing from my home state after a glorious 25 years of living here in a few different cities, first in the Bay Area, then in LA, and then in San Francisco. So we will, in the latter half of the video, get into how similar or dissimilar my reasons for leaving are. That being said, I'm gonna put my critical thinking cap on here and dissect this narrative a little bit. So, if you simply slap in leaving California into the YouTube search bar, these videos will pop up. I took on the due diligence of watching almost every single one that had substantial views. Brain rot did occur. I would only indulge in Ben Shabibo videos for you all and for the good of this argument to make sure that I'm representing their takes somewhat accurately. Their reasons for leaving all boil down to the same 4 or 5 categories. The first one to almost always come out of their mouths being taxes.
The highest taxes, we have sales tax. Highest sales tax, no taxes, things like that. Extra taxes, we have property taxes. But then the income taxes. The income taxes.
The only thing this state is number 1 at
Is taxation and regulation.
Leaving California to Florida means I would escape about $1.4 million in annual taxes on my business.
Now, on top of that, in 2018, they changed the federal tax law to where I can't even write off my state taxes anymore.
Taxes are too high. Taxes on their personal income in California are too high. Taxes on their business income in California are too high. And of course, when you're Graham Stephan and you're paying $400,000 a year in income tax, according to him,
I'm likely looking at a savings of about $400,000 or so.
You're definitely paying attention to that number much more than the average civilian does. But also, how much money are these folks making? That $400,000 isn't even their annual income. That's just how much tax they pay on their income. It's one thing to talk about taxes being too high when you can barely afford a decent standard of living, but it's another thing to complain about taxes being too high when it's preventing you from hoarding wealth. We see many of these people, like Joe Rogan, like Ben Shabibo, moving to places where they can manufacture a tax cut. They know that the California state government is not going to be slashing income tax rates on their scale of wealth to the extent that they need. So they just say, hey, I'm gonna manually create a tax cut by moving to Texas, a state where you do not have any state income tax. It's very transparent. We get it. You're exorbitantly wealthy and you want to continue to scale up. For some reason, the amount of wealth you have today is not enough and you simply need to grow and grow and grow. It's worth noting that, though Joe Rogan didn't mention it, his move to Texas would save him millions of dollars because he had just signed a $30 million contract with Spotify. So to me, it's so transparent that these are people looking for like a wealth sanctuary. These key people are droning on and on and on about how high the cost of housing in LA is. And then in the same breath, in the case of Graham Stephan, admitting that they just bought a duplex and are contributing and feeding into housing as a commodity rather than a utility, a basic fundamental need that we all need.
First, we have to talk about the cost of housing. The cost of living in Los Angeles is really high, and there's a premium that you pay. You can live in a high cost of living area on a budget if you're creative and you don't mind putting in the work. For example, I was able to buy my duplex in the middle of the city.
Like, these folks are buying up property. It's not just them, it's a bunch of venture capital companies. There's a lot of capital invested in flipping properties, in treating housing as an investment, as a way to just sit on something, maybe rent it out and jack up the price so that people are paying way more in rent than they would need to so that they can earn a profit instead of treating it as a utility. So to me, it's like, it's in the same vein as Kardashians complaining about beauty standards while simultaneously editing videos to slim their waist down. You really can't have it both ways. I'm not saying that these handful of people are single-handedly responsible for the increasing cost of housing. Individuals are not all to blame. There is a larger system that starts with a C, based on a profit motive, that loves when we commoditize these things, but it does concern me to hear people that can afford like any standard of living in LA complain that it's too expensive. This sort of dovetails right into the next central reason I heard time and time again, which was homelessness.
And you know what I'd get out of moving to Florida? Well, first, I'd escape the blight of homelessness that's destroying this state.
Just overrun with horror shows.
Bums everywhere. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, this is crazy.
Walked out of my house one day, there's just a guy lying face down in the gutter like Edgar Allan Poe. Like,
That's crack. That's a homeless person smoking crack. Welcome to LA.
Honestly, the commentary and things they had to say about unhoused folks was just cruel. Like, nobody deserves to be talked about that way. At all.
And there's 80 fucking tents, and they put a porta potty there. You know, you got a little gift. You get to see some weird shit while you're here.
Ben Shabibo saying similar things.
and the city has decided that in the name of freedom, they're going to allow the suburbs to be overrun by this homelessness problem that does affect people who are paying their taxes.
As if homelessness is affecting him more than it is people who are unhoused in Los Angeles and around the country. Again, I don't know why I have to be fair to these guys, but for the sake of a cohesive argument here, to be fair, Graham Stephan did admit that unhoused folks are the real victims here. But then in the same breath, he said it's hard to look at and he's gotta go. And I'm like, if it's hard to look at, I cannot imagine what it's like to live that experience every single day of your life. They want to be viewed as morally righteous, or maybe some of them do. And so they admit, even like Ben Shabibo mentioned that like these folks need help and they need support. But these are also people, several of them have voiced not wanting to fund social services. Their politics don't align with a social safety net. These are people that are all for privatization, all for a free market economy.
It's the state of California that has made it a norm to have more regulation and more pain, which is exactly why we lack housing in California.
But failed to see how homelessness is one of those problems, like almost every single problem, that cannot be solved by privatizing these services. It's not profitable to take care of unhoused people. That's why it's not happening, Ben. That's why it's not happening, Joe. So either we need to live in a society that funds and distributes resources their way to minimize class divide, or you're gonna see this on your street. These are people to me that are at a level of myopia and classism where there's a sense of exceptionalism in them that if they've garnered enough wealth to live in these desirable places, to live in these nice suburbs, or to live in a nice area of Los Angeles or wherever they live, that they shouldn't have to see visible poverty, that they can use their monetary privilege to go elsewhere and in turn drive those prices up. And the thing is, like, they don't see themselves as part of this community. These unhoused folks are part of your community. They're not like a little speck of dust and a blemish on your neighborhood. Like, you have the opportunity to be a part of the ecology of your city and your community, but instead they choose to be incredibly individualistic and not contribute any of their time, any of their resources. Like, there are so many projects and folks like working together through mutual aid, through direct action to try to work on these issues. But I did not hear one of these men. For some reason, all of the videos on this topic that were highly viewed were men. They choose not to mention it. They would rather just pack up and go. There's a lot of commentary around Los Angeles being dirty or dangerous. You hear this a lot from Ben Shabibo.
With the trash that now strews every sidewalk and underpass and overpass and embankment in LA, every single one. Nearly every public space has become a repository of open waste and needles and trash. The most beautiful areas of LA have become wrecks. It's one thing to pay exorbitant taxes. It's another thing to pay exorbitant taxes to watch your city degrade into a hellhole.
Trash thrown across the sidewalks.
To me, and this is reading into it a little bit, to me, those are just euphemisms for poverty. In Ben's video, he's criticizing Los Angeles for not criminalizing drug use enough, not policing enough, etc. But I challenge him to think about, like, and he's not gonna do this, I'm not gonna change these people, but I'd like to challenge him to think about why crime is being committed in the first place. Like, what are the motivations behind these crimes? It's usually not just for shits and giggles. It's usually out of a place of need and marginalization, lack of resources, lack of funding. Like, policing, not the answer, but you already knew that was gonna come out of my mouth. To be fair, there were a few reasons voiced by these folks that didn't fall into this category. It would be in bad faith to say that everything they said falls under sort of a premise of wealth. In Joe Rogan's early days, before he had actually made the move and was just considering it, I heard things from him like
places to live that are more peaceful. I want to live in a place where it rains. I really think that there's something that's taxing about the volume of people here.
he wanted a slower pace of life, you know, a smaller city. The traffic was very stressful to him. These things are not motivated by his class. In my POV, again, if you want to critically think and challenge me in the comment section, be my guest. For what it's worth, like, I'm not advocating that the right thing to do here would be to keep all of these people in Los Angeles and to stop them from moving. I'm not gonna gatekeep moving. Like, I'm not gonna tell someone that they cannot get up and go. There are so many beautiful places to live. It is not unbelievable to me that someone would wanna live outside of the state of California. It is simply just that the unspoken, like, underlying through line here is out of power. And I think, like, part of the reason I get so worked up is that these are the stories that you hear about on, like, CNBC. These are the stories that are getting airtime because these are people with clout, with notoriety, with power. It makes sense why they are. But the stories that we're not hearing are people that are moving out of Los Angeles or being displaced out of homes they've lived in for years and years and years, not out of choice or privilege or agency, but because they have to. Like, they're being priced out of some place that they've called home and want to continue to call home, but cannot, and so are being pushed further and further out. This disproportionately affects, obviously, working class people, indigenous populations, brown and black folks. We do hear about gentrification on the news. It's not like it's absent, but this whole, like, California exodus, I've been waiting to hear, like, a take that's like, all right, let's tone down on the rich people fleeing to somewhere it's easier to be rich and talk about the people that lack resources, that are having to move, and, like, how traumatic that could really be. Like, if you're being ripped out of the place that you love, especially local LA folks, you know, that have lived there their whole lives. Now I will step off of my little hot take soapbox to speak on why I'm leaving, if that interests you at all. I'm not claiming any, like, moral superiority here, although I do want to note that class plays a role in my ability to leave. It's not because I've been pushed out of my neighborhood, it's because I simply want to. And that is a massive luxury and privilege that a lot of folks in California, like I just said, don't have. So why am I leaving my home state, the beloved landscape of California? It's not that I'm getting tired of this place. It's that I know if I don't challenge myself to get up and try somewhere new and live somewhere else, that I just won't. Like, California is very safe for me, and I have gotten the pleasure of seeing so many of my friends after high school, after college, moving to like completely different places than they ever thought they would end up, planting their roots, knowing zero people, and then like thriving, like completely developing their own sense of community there. And just talking to them over the years, I can tell how much they've grown and how much they've found their own like self-assurance and confidence and identity, and like I want that for myself. I love the Bay Area. I just was itching for something new, like a new scene, a fresh start, exactly what I was just talking about. I do think my parents deserve some peace and quiet from me. They certainly didn't anticipate having me home, not once after college, but twice, and boomeranging ad nauseum, so I am going to relieve them of my presence. The next reason is that my job is fully remote now. I am permanently remote, so there is no responsibility for me to show up in an office for my 9-to-5 job. I always hear people express a lot of skepticism when people say they're moving abroad or just moving somewhere very different where they know nobody. And ultimately, everyone's like, I can always come back. It's not like I'm signing my life away. It'll be a year lease, and if it turns out I hate the place I'm moving to, I can turn it back around. So where am I going? This will be in a separate video. I hate to cliffhang you, but this video is just getting very long, and I know that the viewership's gonna drop off if I talk any longer. So let's chat in a bit about this. Most of you know where I'm going, but a lot of you question like my interest in moving there, so we'll devote another video to that topic for the folks that are a little bit more invested in my shtick. If you're not invested in my shtick and you think you could potentially be invested in my shtick later on, I encourage you to click the red subscribe button. It'll turn gray and a D is gonna pop up at the end of it. Very exciting. So that is free for you to do, and then my next videos will pop up in your subscription box. There's also a notification bell. If that's not turned on, that's also available for you to do so. What have you all heard about this California exodus? Do you see sort of the same themes appearing again and again and again? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all next time, and Katherout.
I want a sugar crush. Tell me if I can have that.